Okay, good evening, everyone. And it's a very exciting moment. First, I want to thank everyone to join the graduation ceremony and then in-person visit. I believe these two events actually so exciting to see you in person. It's not easy because we come from all over the country. So I'm very glad to see everyone, and thank you very much for those who helped make this happen. So tonight, we're going to do a presentation for each group, and I think we talked about this long time ago. You have a presentation, and I'm going to ask some questions. And I'm going to record this and then keep a copy in case you want to review that. And then you can cut the part of the video where you present. Any other questions before we proceed? Okay, we're going to the first group, and Justin, and Andrew, and Akshan. Please go ahead. If you want to share your slides, share slides, you can just share it.
Yes, okay. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. Yeah, here it is. Okay, can you all see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, just the slides. Yeah, so you can just see the slide, right? Just the slides, the whole
It's not a
screen.
full screen, but we can see it pretty clear. Yeah.
It's not a full screen.
Mhm.
Wait, so can you see this stuff?
Yeah, we can see the slide pretty clearly. That's fine.
Right, okay. Wait, no, I mean like right now I have it on a split screen. Are you seeing the split screen or are you just seeing the slide itself?
Just slide itself.
Just the slide, okay. Okay, that's good. Just making sure. Okay, anyways. Okay, yeah, so our topic was the Mail-in Anti-Eviction Fund. So basically, the purpose of this bill was to establish a state fund to loan to renters to prevent evictions. And our target audience was for mail-in renters that are facing temporary hardships, such as job loss. In the long term, for that, the interest-free loan needs to be paid back within a specific period without any interest. And we had three goals in mind. We had to address housing insecurity, where the goal was to address housing insecurity and promote housing stability in the state. And at the same time, it was also be self-sufficient financially. Also wanted to promote housing stability, while creating a state fund to provide interest-free loans, and we're facing temporary hardships such as job loss to prevent evictions and promoting housing stability. And finally, we wanted to ensure financial self-sufficiency of the fund. Like current rental assistance programs are inadequate, and this proposed solution seeks to bridge these gaps. So ensuring loan repayment will require considering tenants' financial mobility, assets, job history, and additional support mechanisms to help achieve long-term stability. So a little background. So currently evictions have been particularly high, which have been exacerbated by the pandemic, which has caused significant physical, mental, and emotional harm to those affected. Being forced out of one's home is both humiliating and detrimental, like with society often viewing people who have been evicted as like a lower class, making it challenging for them to recover. And although rental assistance programs in Maryland and Baltimore City do offer some support, they have limitations and may not cover all needs. So of course, a more sustainable and scalable solution is necessary, and this proposal aims to bridge that gap. So our approach, so to address the urgent need for intervention due to high eviction rates, this proposal seeks to establish a state fund providing interest-free loans to renters facing temporary financial hardships. The methodology for this initiative includes several key components. So research and data analysts, so an in-depth analysis of current eviction trends, housing affordability issues, and the limitations of existing rental programs in Maryland and Baltimore City. This includes reviewing studies such as those by the National Bureau of Economic Research and data from the sources like the United States Census and the St. Louis Federal Reserve. So help us understand the financial mobility of tenants and the broader economic impacts of housing instability. The program design we hope for it to cover 2 to 3 months of past due rent, which aims to prevent evictions and promote housing stability. The loan will be structured so that it is self-sufficient with no interest and a repayment plan tailored to the tenant's financial situations. So eligibility criteria, hopefully it focuses on tenants experiencing a one-time financial setback, such as job loss or unexpected expenses. The criteria will also consider the tenant's financial history, current income, and potential for future stability. And finally, support mechanisms. So the integration of additional support mechanisms to enhance tenants' financial mobility and stability. This can include things like job placement assistance, financial counseling, and other resources. So it aims to create a robust and effective anti-eviction fund that can not only provide relief to the tenants, but also address underlying issues in housing. Okay. So just to go a little bit more in depth into issues with housing and eviction. So Maryland renters face a severe housing affordability crisis due to high housing costs, financial strain, and eviction trends, which is compounded by challenging landlord practices. A shortage of housing units and restrictive regulations drive up costs, with 50% of renters spending over 30% of their income on housing. This burden is particularly intense in areas like Baltimore, where rent inflation outpaces wage growth. In addition, although pre-filing notices have decreased, but actual evictions have surpassed pre-pandemic levels, which indicates landlords may be opting for direct evictions. Thus, many tenants struggle to find affordable alternatives, which leads to an increased lease overstays. Landlords also often neglect necessary repairs, which is kind of a way to force tenants to live in unhealthy conditions or face retaliatory evictions if they speak up. So given these pressures, repaying loans from the anti-eviction fund could be difficult for many tenants, potentially pushing them into further financial distress. So the disparity between rent inflation and wage growth exacerbates this challenge, which is along with additional financial burdens like neglected repairs and retaliatory evictions. So this crisis affects not only individual renters, but also the broader economy, which diminishes tenants' ability to contribute to local businesses and services. Financial strain impacts their mental and physical well-being, which leads to high healthcare costs and reduced productivity. Addressing these issues is crucial for both individual and community health, requiring comprehensive policy measures and support systems to ensure access to affordable, safe, and stable housing for all residents. Next, we can talk about the financial mobility of tenants. To understand the financial landscape of tenants eligible for this fund, a study by the Yale economist John Eric Humphreys found that tenants average about $3,000 in debt collection 4 years before eviction cases. So this suggests actually limited financial mobility among tenants facing eviction, with eviction only slightly increasing financial strain. So this suggests that eviction itself does not significantly impact resident mobility or elevate financial hardship, according to research from the University of Chicago. So if the anti-eviction fund only covers eviction prevention costs, it won't lead to meaningful change without additional capital. So for example, like if a tenant consistently earns $10 a year and faces eviction, the fund prevents immediate debt, but does not address the ongoing financial stability. So this cycle continues until the tenant's income increases, which is unrealistic for most facing eviction. Including additional support such as financial aid or job guarantees may be necessary. So this research shows that tenants' financial mobility is generally low and does not improve significantly after avoiding eviction. So this low mobility could hinder their ability to repay loans, which suggests something like a stipend-based system might be more effective. Addressing this lack of financial mobility is crucial for the success of the anti-eviction fund. Okay, Andrew, this is your slide. Do you want to chime in?
Oh, hold on. So actually your time out, right? So, but
Time out. Oh, okay.
I'll let your first one continue, but remember, right, 5 minutes, I told like in total 10 slides, right? So, but let's continue for this group, but I just want to help other groups we're going to through, right? Make sure your message is concise, right?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Who is the next one for this one? Andrew, go ahead. You're mute.
We can't hear you.
Hello, does this work?
Yeah.
Yep, we can hear you now.
All right, finally it works. Okay. Okay, wait, where is this been? Okay,
Wait 1 second.
where were we? Okay, let me just find the thing now. Where's the call?
My
Okay,
computer
now I
has frozen.
can't bring it up now. I can't bring up the slide. Where is it?
I'm
I
sorry.
can't bring up
My
the
right
Zoom.
now, can you see the
Can
screen?
you, I
have
guess
you
You can
I
click
can't
on
right now.
that
I'm
and
trying to
just
figure it out.
move.
wait have you
Yes,
guys frozen?
I guess you would just do this. Yeah, you continue then, I guess. I can't find it.
Wait, has your screen frozen? My screen just froze on my computer.
Yeah, I'm like incapable of opening up Zoom right now, so it's just not working.
Please hold for technical
You
difficulties.
can you speak and just move the slides? Does that work?
Well, no, that's the thing. My computer is frozen. I can't move anything on my computer, but you can still hear me and see me. Oh.
Did you guys send also a copy?
I think so. Let me try and
My
find it in that
computer
case.
froze.
Oh, Zoom's finally opened up again. Where's the document?
Delegate, since the time is up, so can we like
Let's just
move for the next one and we'll revisit this like by the end of it?
No, let them finish. The first group, let them finish, right? So
Okay, yeah, because I just figured out my computer issues. So I have a slide up for you, Andrew.
Right, finding Zoom again. There it is. Okay. Yeah, so then also when it comes to actually measuring how likely it is for the tenants to repay whatever loan they take out, we can like probably safely assume that the tenants are requiring this temporary solution due to like various short-term issues and not some kind of a more overarching type of problem. And and that like they don't have that much money or like that much like present, I guess, value on them in terms of savings and whatnot. So then you can probably also safely assume that these factors being just like having, oh wait, why did I write that? Oh, something's okay. Well, anyway, the written I don't know how to explain things. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart right now. I cannot think straight.
how many pages do you have for your presentation in total?
There's only two
In other
more.
words, those factors just mean that it's more likely that they will pay back their loan, and then the second half are just factors that will indicate them being less likely to repay. Next slide. So then, in other words, repayment for each individual will vary based on personal circumstances. Tenants seeking the loan will likely have like just generally less at the current time, and then ex-evictees or people who have been to prison before are also more likely to be. Oh, no, not prison. Why did I say that? No, people who've been evicted before are more likely to not be able to keep a job for a long time, also being less likely to pay back, and once again, it also may require taking into account their interpersonal relations at the time, who they can rely on, whatnot. Is that it? Right.
Yep. Okay. Akshan, do you want to present this last slide?
Yeah, can you stop sharing?
Okay. Yeah, stop sharing references.
Yeah. Okay. So first is Akshan is here too. Okay. So first of all, I want to thank you very much for the presentation. And overall, I think it's organized pretty well. So you covered from why we want this, what's the consequence of that, right? So I think one part you're missing is about the estimation how much money may cost. You remember I told you guys, right, do an estimation. Whenever you have a project or have something, right, try to estimate the cost. That'll be something everybody wants to know, right? It's very in terms of budget related. Like, what's the number, right? When you want to do something, how much money it does cost? So you're missing that part. But overall, I think you're doing a great job and covering from why we want this to how we want to do this, right? So overall, it's pretty good. And for every other group, right? Remember, put a slide number on your slides, because sometimes when people, especially for virtual presentation, people want to ask questions, they may just say go to slide 5 or slide 6, right? I have a question there, but I just forget which page. And but I think something you didn't really elaborate pretty well about the impact, the local impact. You said that the insurance healthcare costs will go up. I really don't see that, right? So, but overall pretty good. And one question for the group. And what's the most challenging part for this proposal in your mind? Like, if we want to start to create this anti-eviction fund, right? What's the most challenging part based on your research?
I think it's ensuring that actually helping these tenants get out of eviction is going to have a long-term effect on their well-being, because a lot of the current research shows that even while tenants may like get a temporary relief from avoiding eviction, they still have a multitude of other issues that they're facing, so they might not be able to ever even get to pay back the loan. I
see. Yeah, that's a great, I would say, it's a great reference, right? It's kind of like counterintuitive, because like later we say, oh, this may be really helpful, but based on your research, right, this may be not helpful at all. And then the other part is, how do we get the money back, right? So that's very, I really like that, and it's pretty, I would say, counterintuitive to me. So I definitely will do more research on that. And okay, thank you very much for group 1. And let's move to group 2. Do we have everyone here? Victoria Chen, Andrew Wang, and Benjamin Zhang.
Oh, that team got an extension to,
Okay.
Yeah, next.
Group 3.
Yeah.
Evan Tost, Daniel Shen, Felicity Zhang.
Yeah, sure. I can share my screen right now.
Okay.
All right, wait, let me go back.
Great.
Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
All right, so we had topic 3, and it was researching how to improve compliance of environmental standing within Maryland. So
all right, so here are some focus questions. So what is locus standi, Evan?
So locus standi is one's ability to bring litigation against another party based on facts of their proposed case.
Okay, so Felicity, why is standing so important for environmental issues?
Environmental issues are unpredictable and destructive, especially now that we're seeing things like climate change globally, and even more of these disasters increasing both naturally and as a result of like human behaviors. So citizens should have rights to bring legal action in search of reparations.
So what types of environmental issues can be brought in front of the law?
So often it's things like pollution or man-made disasters that are caused by an entity that were not supposed to be there, essentially.
So why is this issue on the delegates' agenda? What is Maryland standing currently?
So Maryland actually passed a pretty recent act in 2023. They passed the Environmental Standing Act as Subtitle 5 of Title 1 of the Maryland Statutes on Natural Resources. And this act outlines Maryland's goal to, quote, abate the pollution, destruction, or substantial or unreasonable impairment of the air, water, or other natural resources of the state. And it states that action can be brought in the circuit court if a failure is occurring, has occurred, or is likely to occur. So this act actually represents a pretty significant step forward from previous standing in Maryland, but our report still found that there were some issues that can still be improved upon to align it with federal standing.
Okay, so Evan, what are those specific issues with Maryland standing?
So the main issue is that it is too restrictive. So if you look at other states, they have very specific guidelines that kind of leave the boundaries open for certain things to be interpreted one way or the other. But in Maryland, it's very certain what they determine as a case and what is not. So it doesn't leave much breathing room for basically different cases to be brought.
Okay, so let's analyze the federal level of standing.
So at the federal level, there's the landmark Supreme Court case in 2007 was Massachusetts versus the EPA, which established three main criteria for locus standi. And these criteria still place the burden on the litigant because it's important for court to be able to kind of try to dissuade as many unnecessary lawsuits, but there are still very explicit ways in which you can qualify to kind of bring a suit in court. The Massachusetts v. EPA case specifically states the first item that a litigant must show is that they have suffered a concrete and particularized injury that is either actual or imminent. The second is that the injury is fairly traceable to the defendant or whichever company or government agency that is being sued. And third is that a favorable decision by the court is going to be able to likely redress that injury. And that action historically, that action has taken the form of things like economic reparations, like paying victims of disasters caused as a result of these harmful behaviors, or also just passing or improving regulations to kind of ensure that there's greater consistency in how agencies and companies are behaving overall towards the environment.
Yeah, so what we also did is we looked at state decisions that Maryland may be able to adapt to or add to their current legislation. So in Bigelow v. Virginia, basically the court ruled that in the case of standing, that there had to be more than a subjective chill. So more than just a very small detail, it had to be substantial. And then in the California Supreme Court precedent, the California Supreme Court also said that essentially any case can't be based on past grievances and had to be examined for substance and essence of the case. And then finally, in Toxic Waste Impact Group Inc. v. Leavitt, Oklahoma, they had a very similar ruling to the federal decision. So they emphasize that a decision could redress the injury, that it had to be imminent and things like that. So these state decisions could play a role. And if Maryland wants to further improve their standing, we can look at these other states' presidents and determine what worked best.
Okay, so to conclude, we suggest that first, Maryland should work towards developing language that is less restrictive when it comes to one's right to bring forward a case. Second, reduce restrictive fees and provide aid for individuals in need when bringing a case to court. And third, observe federal rulings regularly on standing doctrine-related issues to ensure a sense of correspondence and compliance across levels. And last, understand an individual's perspective and making sure one is entitled to the rights that they deserve, for example, educating them in school, and etc.
So that concludes our presentation. If anyone has any questions, we're happy to answer.
Thank you. I really like your group collaborate together, right? So it's really entertaining as well. I like the style. I like the background as well. Who took the picture? And so one question for you, right? So whenever we said we want to ask people have standings, then the people who polluted, who caused the issue, will probably come out against it, right? And so beyond that, what other like opposition do you see?
So I can take this one. So other opposition you may see to one bringing litigation. A big issue we found is fees. So fees may dissuade from a normal person wanting to bring a court into case because attorney fees, things like that in the court are very expensive. So we also proposed in our report to ensure that the attorney fees are paid by their own respective sides unless the case is brought in an unreasonable manner. So regardless of the decision, unless it's an unreasonably brought case, we would hope that both sides could pay their own respective attorney fees and lift some of that financial burden off of the person bringing the litigation.
I see. Anybody else want to add to that? That question or any people from the audience, right? If you have a question, we'll allow for one question and then we'll go ahead. Okay, thank you, Evan, Felicity, and Daniel. Great presentation, very concise and clear. I like it. Thank you. But I just realized we couldn't finish in 5 minutes. Okay, next group. Let's do it. Group 4, Daniel, Justin, and Nathan.
Let me share my screen. Okay, so our report is, let me just minimize this. Our report is improve residential building standards against climate change. And our goal is to extend residential building warranty from 1 year to 2 years to handle extreme weather. So here are some current climate problems in Maryland that's harming buildings. So first of all, due to Maryland's nature as a maritime state, it is especially susceptible to sea level rise and coastal flooding, which can create unforeseen troubles for residential buildings. Second, air pollution and industrial waste can corrode and degrade weak materials or poor craftsmanship used to create buildings. Third, heavy precipitation, storms, and flash floods, similar to coastal flooding, can undermine the stability and structures of buildings. And lastly, droughts and tornadoes can create foundational and structural damages to homes. So here's the current Maryland's building warranties and problems. So first of all, there's 2 types. There's the expressed warranties, which are written descriptions from a builder to a buyer that promise the quality and the model that the building will conform to. And second, implied warranties, which are unwritten policies that the home is free from faulty materials, constructed according to sound engineering standards, workmanlike, and fit for habitation. So warranty timeframes. Warranty timeframes are as follows. So unless an express warranty specifies a longer time, if the home is complete when the deed is delivered, the 2 warranties cover an entire year after the date the original purchaser takes possession or the deed is delivered, whichever occurs first. If the home is not completed when the deed is delivered, the warranties cover 1 year after the home is completed or the original purchaser takes possession, whichever occurs first. Here are the coverages. So any defects in materials or workmanship for 1 year, any defects in the electrical, plumbing, heating, cooling, and ventilating systems for 2 years, and defects to any load-bearing structural elements for 5 years. And here are some problems or findings. So climate change poses a growing problem for residential buildings in Maryland, and residents lack the financial capital to maintain their newly built homes due to disasters undermining their qualities of life. Residents' monetary spending on newly built homes can be mitigated by extending residential building warranties from 1 year to 2 years concerning certain climate conditions. So here are the suggestions. First, extension of the defects and materials or workmanship for 1 year section from 1 year to 2 years. The solution to this is straightforward. So we need to focus and tackle this specific section because this one is the only one that has 1 year. So if entire warranties, so like here are the problems. If entire warranties are fully extended to 2 year lengths, buyers could abuse this, while builders may find it difficult to adjust their prices and materials, having to eventually raise certain service fees. The best solution is to find a compromise that only extends the minimum length to 2 years in sections around climate change. Under implied warranties, if certain climate conditions damage the home from faulty materials, sound engineering standards, workmanlike manner, and habitation fit, the warranty must cover 2 years. Under express warranties, the builder must designate a newly required section toward the homes withstanding of certain climate conditions, and these guarantees must cover 2 years. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Daniel. Any other from your team want to like add on?
I don't think Nathan is here, and I think Justin, he was pretty busy with his other group. So
okay, thank you. It's a great presentation, very clear. And one question for you. So you like think about the impact or damage from climate change. How do we define that damage because of climate change or because some other like issues? Like is just like high temperature? Is that like classified as climate change related, or drought, or just like a storm? Does that be classified as climate change related?
yeah, I believe that in this context, climate change can be defined by all issues surrounding the environment, going from man-made pollution, for example, or issues from the nature like coastal flooding and precipitation. So yeah.
Okay, I feel it kind of a little broad, right? I don't know. I think definitely will do some research on this as well. And
yeah,
okay.
but I had to find the specific environmental issues that affect buildings the most in Maryland, and I believe that those that I found were the ones most important for us to tackle.
I see. That's very. I really like the approach, right? It's a very big topic. Then you figure out where we can tackle. That's something we always need, right? We know something big, but we couldn't do everything. So we find something we can do. I like that approach. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
This concludes the presentation for this one. Next one. And Michael, Daniel, and Soho, remove waiver in affordable housing permit.
Yeah, so I don't have any supplemental media for this because I think it's fairly straight to the point, easy to understand, and concise enough that it doesn't need it. So the topic assigned to us was the elimination of affordable housing waivers. And basically that means in most states and Montgomery and Howard counties, there are laws in place that require a certain amount of houses to be affordable housing if a developer chooses to build a certain number of houses. And basically a waiver will waive the requirement to build affordable housing in the area in exchange for normally a sum of money so that the government can build the affordable housing themselves. And there are a few issues with this. This system can be exploited quite easily. Developers can request waivers to avoid the requirement of including affordable housing units in their project, but the criteria for granting these waivers are vague and inconsistently applied across the county. And developers can often just justify the waiver by citing, financial hardship, marketing conditions, or, project-specific challenges. which are not, really scrutinized by officials. And the big issue with granting these waivers, even if there is a good cause to do so, is that it really impacts the distribution of affordable housing across the counties. The waiver and payment in lieu options have led to concentration of affordable housing in particular zones or areas that are often economically disadvantaged, really reinforcing the patterns of socioeconomic segregation and, contrary to the goals of inclusionary zoning, which is the purpose of, these affordable housing laws being passed in the first place. We've taken a look at a few reports, and they really highlight the concentration of affordable housing along certain areas in Howard and Montgomery counties that have higher poverty rates and lower median incomes compared to the rest of the county. So basically, these waivers and payment in lieus concentrate affordable housing in specific areas, prevent meaningful socioeconomic integration, and they reinforce the segregation of affordable housing units, and basically just undermine the whole purpose of passing the affordable housing laws in the first place. There are of course, financial shortcomings of these waivers as well. They are often insufficient to finance the constructions of new affordable housing units elsewhere. And of course, they also cause delays in the creation of these affordable housing because the government has to go through and build it themselves.
Wow, Michael, great job. And without the PowerPoint slides, you got everything covered. I really like it. Anybody else from your group want to add on?
I don't think anybody else from the group is here.
Okay. I think you covered really well spoken on this issue. You covered every details of the impact or negative impact about waivers. And yeah, okay. I think that's good now. I don't have any questions. It's pretty clear. Well iterated. Okay, thank you.
Yep,
And,
thank you.
okay, this concludes presentation for this group. Let's go to the next one. AI legislation. Elisa Zhang, Shanna Kaka, and Jimmy Chen.
Hold on. I think we're all here. So
okay, that's great.
I'll just share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Alyssa.
Oh, my name is Jimmy. Sorry.
Hey, I'm Athena.
My name is Shina.
Turn on your camera if you are presenting, right?
Sorry, my camera isn't working at the moment, so.
Go ahead.
And we'll be presenting our research on the existing and emerging artificial intelligence or AI legislation. So as defined by the US Code, AI is a machine-based learning system that can make impactful predictions, recommendations, or decisions. And in recent years, federal and state governments have passed an array of AI legislation.
Moreover, according to the National Conference for State Legislatures, current legislation falls into two main categories: regulatory legislation, which attempts to mitigate risks, and legislation promoting AI development and literacy.
The 2022 White House Blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights describes an intent to give more power to users, offering them some control over how data collected about them is used, as well as protect against inappropriate use of data.
Current Maryland AI legislation revolves around Governor Moore's executive order, where he calls for responsibility, ethical, and beneficial use of AI in Maryland. First, it is important to ensure that AI developers explicitly indicate when and how they use AI to generate synthetic content or make critical decisions.
So one concern is regarding training data transparency. Since AI models are trained on large data sets, it's important to ensure that the data sets don't contain biased or inaccurate data, which can affect the model's performance negatively. And another concern is known as AI disclosure. So humans should have the right to be informed when they're interacting with AI-powered systems. So for example, with job interviews, job candidates should have the right to know and opt out when an AI is used in the hiring process.
One major form of AI disclosure is regarding the deepfakes. Many states have already passed laws that ban deepfakes for political or sexual exploitation. Maryland, however, lacks any significant consequences for deepfakes production at the moment.
Furthermore, as AI becomes increasingly integrated into our daily lives, we need to ensure that AI is used in a fair and ethical way.
Many ethical concerns stem from the exploited use of AI geared towards creating fake content. Alabama and other states have passed laws for guidelines against such issues specifically to limit the impact of fake content that sexually misportrays children. And moreover, they also refrain from voters being swayed by content that changes the stance of an election candidate.
Ethical use of AI in a school setting often addresses academic integrity. Data privacy and the use of AI in college admissions are growing areas of concern, and states like California and Tennessee have bills in progress outlining acceptable use of AI in assignments.
So in conclusion, as AI continues to rapidly develop and becomes further integrated into our everyday lives, it's important to make sure that AI is used in a safe and ethical way. So we propose regulations in 3 main areas: AI transparency, AI disclosure, and the ethical use of AI. Thank you, everyone, for listening to our presentation.
Thank you for the group, and it's pretty clear to me. Just one question for you about US. Probably not everyone knows what USC stands for, right? Can you tell others what USC stands for?
Oh, USC, I think, in like this slide, it stands for the US code. So it's basically just like a definition that's used in a lot of like AI related laws. So then that way, instead of like defining what AI is in every single bill and every single law, you can just refer to this like universal definition in the US code.
It is a federal law, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think one part missing for me, I am looking for very specific example or area, right? So think about that in your report, maybe something pretty specific, right? Right now, like you have 3 areas we can do, right? But I don't see pretty specific one. So if you can think about anything be more specific, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. And let's just conclude presentation from group 6. Let's go to group 7. Yeah, sorry for everyone, right? So we kind of little always overtime, right? So just bear with us. Let's see how much we can go tonight. And group 7.
Group 7 received an extension. So they'll present the next session.
How about group 8?
Group 8 should be here.
Okay. Akshan, Jessica, Jimmy, please go ahead. Drunk driver related issue.
All right, and how long should we keep the report on presentation for?
Presentation, right? 5 minutes.
All right.
Yeah. We will give you some extension, but just try to aim at 5.
Okay. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
All right. So real quick, just a summary of what our report is on. So right now, Maryland doesn't have a super comprehensive framework for child support. So we analyzed how victims of drunk driving would be receiving child support in the case that their parents died. So executive summary. So right now, Maryland DUI laws lack this child support that we're proposing. However, we discovered a law in many other states called Bentley's Law, and this pretty much mandates drunk drivers to be responsible for these fatal accidents and pay child support. And the law is really beneficial because it supports orphan children, reduces the public welfare burden, and also may deter future offenders. So background, right now, Maryland, there has been nearly 800 fatalities in 5 years, Maryland is pretty good with drunk driving, though. This is on the lower end for most states. However, there has been an increase in orphan children due to DUI incidents, not just in Maryland, but nationwide. So, current Maryland legislation. So, right now, there are a lot of DUI laws to outline what exactly happens after an incident like this, but there is no mandatory child support. As for sentencing, Maryland is rather lax compared to other states, so it's only up to 5 years of imprisonment or a $5,000 fine in the case of a DUI manslaughter. And the Mothers Against Drunk Driving Association rated Maryland a 3.5 for legislation. So this number was above the national average, which was around a 3, and that's because Maryland has some current systems in place. So one system to help families who may have suffered from this is the CICB assistance. So this is basically an organization that provides restitution to families who may have been affected. And people can also go through civil lawsuits for punitive damages, or the court can order to pay restitution for things like lost wages. However, right now it's unclear whether that restitution is sufficient to account for something like child support. So Bentley's Law. So it was named after a child orphaned by a DUI incident in Missouri, and it's been passed in these states. And its primary focus is just to provide financial support for children orphaned by DUI incidents, because most of the time when a child has a parent die, then that's a huge financial burden that's put on the remaining parent, or if there's no remaining parent, then that's a super huge burden that the child shouldn't have to bear. So next we analyzed a couple of arguments for and against Bentley's Law. So as for the arguments for Bentley's Law, obviously it ensures financial support for orphan children, but it also has a couple of dual incentives. So it may deter potential drunk drivers, because if drunk drivers see that if something happens, I'm going to need to pay this child support, this lifelong burden, they may be deterred. This is especially important considering that Maryland's drunk driving legislation is really lax right now, so this could serve as a deterrent. And it could also reduce the public welfare burden, because CICB assistance comes from the Public Welfare Fund. So if instead of CICB assistance, children were to receive child support directly from the perpetrator of the crime, then this would reduce the burden. Opponents of the law say, however, that there are concerns about double punishment. So, for example, if the offender has to pay that $5,000 fine, should they also be required to do this child support? Is that right? And second, they also say that due process may not happen properly, considering the offender's ability to pay. So what exactly happens if an offender can't pay? Do we make them pay later? Do we make them take out a loan? Do we make them go into their own financial burden? That's not super comprehensive yet. So after that, we analyzed feasibility. So we decided that it was not a partisan issue. So in the states where it did pass, it was almost unanimous support, which means that on the left and on the right, we see huge support for this law, meaning that it's beneficial for both parties. And there have been concerns about implementation, especially if offenders can't pay, as we said before. However, as we said before, these concerns are also addressable, considering that many states have already passed the law and it's working right now. That means that these concerns can be addressable in Maryland. And overall, we decided it's very feasible, especially because it does have that dual incentive of reducing the public burden, the public welfare burden. So financial issues shouldn't be a huge concern here. So in conclusion, our recommendation is that Bentley's Law is overall a good thing in Maryland, and a lot of these concerns that we've seen about the offender's ability to pay can be addressed by careful legislative oversight, as we've seen in other states, and implementation overall could improve public safety as well as support for affected families.
Thank you, Akshan. Does any other team members want to add on? Share something? Okay. So, it's a great presentation. I really like the way you offer like opposition and support, right? This really helps us to understand the issue better. So in terms of Bentley law, when they implement in other states, how good of those implementation? Did you read any report on that?
Yeah, so in our research, we found that overall implementation was pretty smooth, because not every state implemented Bentley's law the exact same way. They each had their own way for dealing with the concerns we addressed, such as the offender's inability to pay.
I see. Great presentation and great summary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this conclude for the presentation group 7, group 8. Let's go to group 9. Do we have that group?
Yep.
Impact related to marijuana use. Kathy, Lian, and Emma, go ahead.
All right, I'll share my screen. Sorry, does anyone else think that they can share the Google Slides?
You should be able to share. Anybody from your group can share that?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. Can you?
Yes. You want to make a full screen?
Yeah.
Presentation mode? Yeah. Go ahead.
So our topic was the impact study of marijuana use in Maryland. And first off, we're going to go over the introduction to the topic as well as its health and external impacts, and finally an analysis on what we should do according to these factors. So first off, what is marijuana? According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, marijuana refers to the dried leaves, flowers, stems, and seeds from the cannabis sativa or cannabis indica plant. And for 3,000 years now, marijuana has been used for both medicinal and recreational purposes. It has also been known as cannabis or weed, and in this presentation, we'll refer to it as marijuana or cannabis. Also, it contains the chemical THC, which causes short-term hallucinations as well as anxiety.
So to highlight the timeline, in 2014, in Maryland, medical marijuana was legalized. In 2017, the Maryland Cannabis Administration began to distribute medical marijuana to registered patients. And in spring of 2023, recently, a law was enacted to legalize recreational use of marijuana in Maryland. And in July of 2023, the possession of small amounts of marijuana is legal in Maryland for individuals over 21.
And now we're looking at the health impacts of marijuana use. The major topics we're looking at here are physical health and mental health, adolescent development, and medical benefits. First off, cannabis use causes chronic respiratory illnesses, heart problems, addiction, and acts as a gateway drug. While cannabis itself might not have a lot of people addicted to it, since only 10% develop an addiction to cannabis itself, it acts as a major gateway drug to more concerning drugs such as cocaine or opioids. And additionally, it causes detrimental effects on mental health, and that includes heightening symptoms of depression, anxiety, and paranoia.
As for adolescent development, cannabis impairs the nervous system development and creates behavioral deficits. This is also this is a large issue, especially within adolescents, as they're still developing and their brains are taking in information. The legalization of recreational marijuana may have also impacted the amount of marijuana use present in high schoolers. A survey conducted in Maryland high schools showed that 15% of high schoolers in Maryland use cannabis, and these implications place a large risk and harm to adolescents in Maryland.
So marijuana does have potential health benefits, such as treating, for instance, chronic pain, as well as epilepsy, and potentially have effects on HIV and chemotherapy. However, considering the previously mentioned health risks with various mental conditions and heart problems and whatnot, this should be sort of taken cautiously. And additionally, the health benefits of marijuana can be replicated through a separate chemical that's also present in the plant known as CBD, I believe. So this is, while it's also found in marijuana as opposed to THC, it does not produce the same sort of addictive effect. It doesn't produce the same drug high that you would get from THC. So the medical benefits could potentially be an entirely separate issue from legalizing marijuana, the legalization of marijuana as a whole.
As for driving, there is a 2 times higher risk of crashing while under the influence of cannabis. A study found that the prevalence of cannabis-related fatal car crashes in several states have been higher in states where they have marijuana legalized. Also, under the new legislation that was created in 2023, it places heavy implications on the Maryland police ability. So essentially, the police cannot use the odor of cannabis as a sole reason to make a stop or search a vehicle. Police have also stated that enforcing traffic laws for cannabis consumption is challenging as there is no breath test, and determining impairment from blood tests are also very difficult. And another study showed that states where cannabis is legal had 32% more cannabis related DUIs compared to states where it's not legal.
So marijuana legalization does have a number of positive effects upon the economy. There are a number of things that sort of stem from legalization. One of the bigger ones is tax revenue. I don't have the exact number memorized, but Maryland did raise a significant amount of money. I believe it was some $1 million or something from the marijuana industry. So tax revenue certainly is one of the aspects. Additionally, marijuana legalization can also create a number of jobs related to the growth and selling of marijuana. And it is marijuana legalization is just an investment opportunity in and of itself. Additionally, and this is sort of going into crime, the legalization of marijuana allows law enforcement to not dedicate resources towards enforcing laws related to marijuana use, or at the very least, it's much less strict, and there is a reduction in the number of arrests related to use or possession of marijuana. Additionally, the legalization of marijuana, while there's mixed evidence on whether it actually impacts other crime rates, it does lead to a reduction in arrests related to marijuana use, obviously, with the elimination of the crime. And legalization also allows for better regulation of the substance itself as opposed to complete criminalization. So in other words, you can implement measures such as age restrictions or um, uh, standards for the quality of marijuana. So as opposed to completely criminalize marijuana where you're not sure if what you're getting is safe.
As for environmental impacts, the electricity that cannabis cultivation uses releases carbon emissions, which can be harmful to the environment as a whole. And also, it can possibly lead to unsustainable water use and an increase in pesticide use. And going off of that, an increase in pesticide use is linked to water pollution, as there's like runoff from rain that gets polluted into the waters. And there's also no protocol for testing pesticides on on cannabis products. So this potentially leads to alarming health implications.
So the major factors that we considered included the ones that support cannabis use and legalization, which include its medical benefits as well as its positive economic impacts. But however, a majority of our factors support not legalizing cannabis use, and that includes its impacts on physical health, mental health, adolescent development, driving, crime, and environmental impacts. And as a result of this, however, while considering recreational use, we can see there are clearly more negative impacts. However, there are still many benefits of keeping marijuana legal for people with chronic illnesses. And yeah. And as for our final proposal, we decided that we should keep medical marijuana legal under the jurisdiction of the Maryland Cannabis Administration. But with that being said, the MCA should continue to monitor who accesses medical marijuana and ensure that only registered individuals and can safely administer the drug. And additionally, we seek to limit the legality of recreational marijuana. But however, we also want to provide accessible support and treatment for individuals struggling with addiction, since that is a nuanced topic.
Hey, it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like the presentation. You three work together and alternate to present that. And you talk about the cons and the pros and then have some suggestions. That's exactly what we want. So one question for your group. When you were doing your research, I think probably there are comparison between the cigarette and the cannabis, right? And have you really thought about the comparison between these two? And anything, right, related to the comparison of this between the cannabis and the cigarette?
I think when researching the physical impacts of marijuana, we saw that it had a lot of similarities with cigarettes, such as lung damage and like racing heart, as well as causing more mental health problems, such as anxiety or depression. But one difference we found was that due to current research, researchers still don't know if there's an association between cannabis use and lung cancer.
I see, because there are no data available yet, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for this group. Great job.
Thank you.
Let's move to the next group. Group 10, ban mobile phone usage. Is that done or delayed, Jody?
Oh, topic 10 got extension.
Okay. 11, local adequate education fund formula.
I think Shaina is here.
Yeah, Shanna.
Yeah.
Soho, I think Soho is in car, right? Jolene. Go ahead.
Should I present the slides, Sheena, or do you want to?
You can go ahead with the first slide.
Sounds good. Just give me a sec. Okay, you got it? Got it?
Yes, you can see it. Go ahead.
So do you want to do the first slide?
Sure. Okay, hi everyone. We're at topic 11. Our topic was the local adequate education fund formula. Our names are Soha Mahapatra, Shayna Kucker, and Jolene Cow. And I just want to go through a little bit of the methodology. So we kind of looked at where the current budgets were for different counties in Maryland, where that money was going, and the impact that that funding was having on various schools, specifically schools in Howard County and Montgomery County with low income or high need students.
So what is the local adequate education fund formula? So the local adequate education formula fund is like a formula that determines what type of funding and how much funding each school district receives, aiming to provide an adequate amount of resources for all students throughout counties and create an equitable use of resources.
So we looked at different avenues within our research. We kind of split it up. And the first thing we looked at is how funding disparities in the school budget impacts the students and quality of education. So what we found from Montgomery County is there's a lack of consistency between the funding that different schools are getting. And what this means is that there's less resources for specialized programs for low income students. And that really hurts the quality of their education because they're high needs, but they're getting the same money as people who don't really need that money or those specialized programs. And then a similar thing was found in Howard County, but the problem was further exacerbated just because of the fact that Howard County has a large number of low income students who don't speak English as a first language. And what that means is that there need to be even more specialized programs that focus on ESL and creating resources for education in different languages. But if we don't have equitable funding and funding that is targeting the needs of different schools, that results in a lack of quality education for those individuals.
So in order to develop an optimal local adequate education fund formula, we looked into funding models of other states. In particular, the Massachusetts Chapter 70 program and the California's local control funding formula. And the Massachusetts Chapter 70 program sets a foundation budget and use equity adjustments to make sure that funding is distributed in a way that serves all the students, and the contributions for these funds are calculated based on the wealth of local areas. Similarly, California's local control funding formula has like this same target based grant, and it adjusts based on the needs of particular students, especially those who are low income or may have like disabilities.
Okay, so next we have one of our graphs that show Montgomery County public school funding. So as you can see on the county funds to MCPS, there's around a constant rate around 46 to 47%, which is what we were advocating for. We were advocating for a 50% from county budget to from county budget to school budget. So while MCPS is doing that, it looks more consistent compared to Howard County, which you will see on the next slide. And moreover, the free and reduced meal students also show up to be around 43 or 30 to 43%. So what we're looking at here is the fact that the higher that the farms percentage goes, we also need more funding from schools from counties to schools so that we can help fund those programs.
As mentioned before, as you can see by the data for Howard County Public School System funding, although the amount to HCPSS is increasing, the percentage has actually been decreasing in recent years in terms of how much money is going to the school system. And as Sheena said, we are looking for something around 50%, and we are nowhere near that with 33.3% and on the decline. As you can see, farm students are 30%, so close to a third of the total school population. And that shows a need for more adequate funding because, again, with lower income students, you need to ensure that there are specialized programs and resources in place for their education to meet the quality of their higher income counterparts or peers.
So we wanted to take a look at the stakeholders to develop a better funding formula. So we want to consider educators and administrators because they see that disparities in fundings are negatively impacting the futures of their students. And additionally, parents are concerned about how local governments will be able to pay for these fundings, as 50% is quite a lot of the county budget. Additionally, we would like to survey more stakeholders to better address this issue.
So the most relevant to date legislation that we looked at in our research was called Blueprint for Maryland's Future. This blueprint uses a weighing formula to calculate state education funding in terms of like how to achieve successful and equal student outcomes. And it's meant to have a phased-in implementation plan with the goal of increasing transparency and funding overall. And offset wealth disparities, but there are significant challenges and issues with this blueprint, which includes the fact that it is unaffordable for a lot of counties, and it doesn't include specific programs that are necessary and key to an education, like arts and athletics. And the implementation timeline is pretty difficult because it has been pushed back in the past due to lack of funding, and it's foreseeable for this to happen again. And this really just shows why the implementation of a LAEFF is necessary to Maryland's educational future.
So in conclusion, a local adequate education fund formula is crucial for addressing inequalities and improving the future educational outcomes of students in Montgomery and Howard counties. Moreover, it will help the schools in these counties meet the needs of their students. What we would like to suggest is for Montgomery and Howard counties to adopt a constant fund formula. So we were thinking that that counties would be required to provide 50% or more of their operating budget to these schools to ensure that students have enough resources. Additionally, this policy would be implemented slowly so that counties are able to meet the requirements, and we would like to increase the transparency so that parents and other stakeholders will know where these funds are going to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for you three to work together, get the data, put everything together. And I think just look at the slide, pretty straightforward, right? We got more students were higher need, but the money part is not catching up. I have a question. Is that LAEFF? Did I create that term, or you actually found out somewhere, some other places?
I think I did see it around in some articles, like they did label it that acronym of LAEFF.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so I think a great job. Thank you. And Jody, is that all we have tonight? About the group 10? I think Jody did. So is that everyone like original plan that
Oh,
we?
I'm sorry. I muted myself. I think we don't have Erin Zhang here, but we have topic 14, like UDA is here.
Okay, let's go ahead. Let's get that. Then we'll stop here. Okay, group 14. No, I think that is that. Which one? Which topic?
She probably left.
Okay. So how about let's stop here tonight? I think originally we sort of like up to group 10, but we have some groups which has not finished, right? And so I think it's overall it's really great presentation. I think you guys put the effort there and eloquently like deliver your message. And so I really feel really excited and proud of you, what you're doing. Great job. So next week, next Wednesday, we're going to finish other teams with their presentation. So maybe that we need like 1 hour 30 minutes. So prepare for that. I really hope everyone can still join us. Really listen to others what they're doing, right? That it can bring you some ideas, maybe helpful for you in the future. And at the same time, I have not finished reading the reports yet. I'm going to really work extra hours this weekend and make sure we'll give you feedback, and eventually you come back with a good cover letter and put everything together. So that's what I have. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So, and Sophie, I saw you're like, you created some that like
Delegate, sorry to interrupt. There's a topic 12 hasn't been presented yet. That's Felicity's group.
Okay, group 12, please go ahead. Cell phone usage and their fees.
Okay. Give me 1 second to just share a presentation. Okay, cool. Can everyone see the slideshow?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, great. So our topic was outdated cell phone fees. This was me, Sharva, and Lee. Sharva, if you want to start.
Yes. Okay, so a little bit about the background. Cell phone companies impose numerous fees on users. These fees are often automated and obscure, meaning that there's no reason to charge the user. The main issue is that cell phone companies are not transparent with these charges, and often the user does not know what they're paying for. This process is known as bill cramming, the practice of placing unauthorized, misleading, or deceptive charges on the consumer's telephone bill. For example, Verizon, one of the nation's largest telephone providers, was sued for bill cramming and the transparency of their charges.
So our report focused on Maryland's top 3 cell phone providers, which were AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. And the process of our research went through kind of the publicly available information on the most common fees that these companies leverage on their users. And we kind of went through the process of what consumers might find on, for example, their websites and the list of fees that they had available there to kind of simulate the process of seeing which kinds of areas might be confusing for consumers who are really just trying to understand what's on their cell phone bills. So we found a couple of potentially problematic fees or fees that are written vaguely in a way that could incentivize or allow for bill cramming, as Sharva was talking about. So for example, we found that a lot of fees that are labeled as recuperating administrative costs are often very vague, and they do not explain exactly like what administrative functions these fees are actually going toward. And especially because companies are able to change these fees at their own discretion, this puts most consumers at like a disadvantage if they do not understand the exact purpose. There are some charges that cell phone companies do need to kind of fill their obligations to the government and the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. But there are other forms of charges. For example, one of the specific ones that we found was AT&T surcharges, which were like the language that they had on explaining what AT&T surcharges were incredibly vague and really did not specify what those administrative costs were already going towards, especially when these companies also have a lot of other fees that are already government and FCC mandated. Another category of fees was long distance fees, which was especially a problem we noticed with Verizon. Verizon had at least 5 different long distance fees, and they weren't very clearly like delineated as to which ones were actually necessary and which ones just seemed like redundant to overlapping with other ones. And there are also other intentionally vague fees that put consumers at a disadvantage, including T-Mobile's detailed bill fee, which charges users an extra $2 to get a detailed bill report with kind of like the number of calls that they made in a billing period to understand, which just proves that these companies oftentimes are placing numerous unnecessary barriers in the way of consumers who are just trying to understand exactly what they're paying for, and makes it more difficult for consumers to kind of not fall victim to kind of these companies.
Right. So as for legislative recommendations, definitely recommend an assessment of the various fees, not just AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, just cell providers in general. But an assessment and also the elimination of any fees that may be redundant or are aimed at simply passing on the price of government charges or taxes onto the customer, as well as legislation towards making the entire sort of process of the way that the funds from the fees are used, as well as why the fees are actually charged, as well as what fees are charged. Just overall make the process more transparent and much clearer as to what is actually being charged. And so the two biggest takeaways I would say would be the elimination of shady fees and transparency.
And also to add on to that very briefly, the California Honest Pricing Law is a recently passed piece of legislation, I think, that went into effect on July 1st of this year, that kind of it aligns perfectly with the second legislative recommendation that we had, that mandates companies to explicitly state what each fee is being used for. So even if that doesn't directly eliminate kind of the unnecessary or redundant fees, at least consumers can better understand what is actually on their cell phone bill, and that also draws more attention to kind of areas that could be problematic, that gives consumers more leverage over companies to kind of have the potential to sue, because they need to first understand which fees might potentially be like unethical.
Thank you. So yeah, great summary. I think one question I forget to ask is about like if we have a cell phone plan, right? The cell phone company may charge you, for example, $25 a month, and that's the fee you may think you are going to pay, but in reality you probably pay $30, right? Put everything together, including tax. That's where that $5 extra stuff we're trying to cut, right? Either the telecommunication company be really frank, like transparent to us how much they charge, or they put a lot of different fees like beyond that $25. I think that's what we're trying to do. In terms of the fees, do they have the tax applied on that fees, or the tax only on the $25 like monthly plan? I forget that. Do you all really remember anything on that?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if you're asking like whether the tax is applied before or after the fees. I'm not entirely sure, but I know that there is like some amount of overlap between like government taxes, and sometimes like those are classified as fees by companies, which is actually even more problematic, because that kind of groups it into like the domain of like a company and something that's actually regulated by the government, which is like connects with our second legislative suggestion that would kind of focus on making that distinction more clear, so consumers do understand what is actually a tax and what is a fee from the provider itself.
I see. Thank you. Yeah, the reason I got this topic is once I really look at my cell phone bill, I see long distance fee, right? I thought this long distance call had been really kind of a term we have not been used for probably more than 10 years, or maybe 15 years. Like long time ago, when you make a phone call, you have a long distance call and then like local call, right? That's not happening anymore. So that's the reason really got my attention on this. And okay, great summary. I really appreciate that. I think great job. Jody, do we have other group to present?
I think that's pretty much all.
Okay, great job, everyone, and really appreciate that. And see you next Wednesday. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.